Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for those people who have their natal Pluto in the 7th house of committed partnership and partnerships in general. So Pluto is one of the rulers of Scorpio and therefore one of the rulers of the 8th house. And the 8th house is notorious for being a very intense area of life. This is the house of transformation, the house of death, which is a form of transformation, the ultimate form of transformation, if you think about it, the house of intimacy. But a lot of times we see those shadow elements of Pluto, Scorpio, the 8th house, really coming to the forefront. So we're talking about power issues. We're talking about sexuality, especially dark sexuality, taboos, just secrets, shame, the shadow self. Pluto is the lord of the underworld, so it can be crime, so I think I've given a basic overview on that. And then the 7th house, you're talking about your one-on-one relationships with other people. So you might think, well, that's everything, every relationship I have. But you have a dynamic in your one-on-one relationship that is different from what the 11th house represents, which is the group dynamic. And sure enough, I have my sun in the 8th house, so I'm always kind of aware of, I'm always like observing things below the surface, and I notice how people change when they are in group situations. I would like to think that I don't change, but, and maybe some people don't, but some people definitely do. And so you may have a relationship with somebody one-on-one that in a group situation, it might be different. And that's because we are intimate with somebody. When there's nobody else there, it's just you and that person. And so that's what makes it important. And some people have a problem with one-on-one relationships, and it doesn't have to be just marriage or the equivalent. They can have problems with, a deep friendship. They may be very superficial, and they may prefer to be with 3 friends at once instead of just one friend. And so Pluto in the 7th house can sometimes indicate that, strangely enough. The person may fear kind of letting go, again, this idea of power as it relates to being intimate means that you have to let down the mask. You have to be vulnerable. Likewise, Pluto in the 7th can indicate attracting a very intense partner. And this partner could be controlling, jealous, obsessive type of a person. I mean, they didn't mention a stalker, but yes, I mean, that could be that kind of a person. And I want to say that any of these things are possibilities. It's not, it's going to happen to you. But the funny thing is, when I was looking, when I was researching to do this, I got 2 sites I want to give a shout out. One is called, I'm doing this over from last night, so I don't have that in front of me. I'll try to look at my history on my computer to be able to give that to you. But anyway, the point is that one site was saying that this is similar to having Scorpio on your descendant, on the cusp of the 7th house. And I actually have that, so I was like, oof, And I have Pluto in the 5th house. So if you have anything if you happen to have Pluto in your 7th house and you have Scorpio on your descendant, then that's really something, I have to tell you. But yeah, so there's always that that feeling of like, wow, what is it going to bring to a person in their one-on-one relationships? And so without knowing the names of those sites again, one of them is the Astrology Club membership.com. I know that one. But the other one is called advancedastrology.com with hyphens between advanced and astrology. I just feel like it's important to acknowledge these wonderful sites that provide us so much information. Thank you to both of those sites and to all astrology sites that I have visited. So the attraction to Plutonian people, including Scorpios, Scorpio sun signs, Scorpio Venus, moon, even rising, because the rising sign can give that kind of intensity in appearance that you may find very attractive. Not to always bring it back to myself, but I just wanna kind of talk about this since I have Scorpio on the descendant. My partner has Venus in Scorpio. And although he's very fair in complexion, I do find men who are kind of swarthy and have those smoldering eyes very attractive. Another site that I visited is called astrologyk.com, and they talk about this idea of soulmates and a karmic relationship with Pluto in the seventh. And so you may be looking for that type of relationship, and perhaps you find a karmic relationship. What's important to note is that karma means action, and you may have past experiences with this person, but in some cases, especially for the more negative outcomes in these relationships, it can simply be that this person came back to you, in some cases for you to work on these issues of victimization and feeling like you are empowering yourself. So it's always important, I believe, if you have this position, never to give away your power, because power is definitely going to be an issue. In some cases, you may be the one who is controlling, and especially watch out if your Sun, Moon, Venus, maybe Mars are in Taurus, which is a very jealous sign, or in Scorpio, because which can be obsessive and also jealous and suspicious, because that can take it to a new level. You can have somebody with a Taurus energy who feels like that person is basically their possession, that they own them, that they can, and remember that this is the marriage sector. The fifth house is like falling in love, dating, and more casual, like sex and that kind of thing. This is the marriage commitment sector. So sometimes people have this idea that if they marry somebody, that then they own them. They may not say that, but they say, okay, look, I've got the document, I've got that marriage license, I have the ring, so I've got the receipts that I've got the proof that you are my property, basically. So if you have those things, look at your attitude towards committed partnership, because especially with those people who are Scorpios or who have a prominent Scorpio, if you have Pluto in the seventh house, your worst nightmare may be somebody cheating, but you may be so terrified of being abandoned or betrayed that you may engage in activity that forces that person to, push back and be driven away, especially if they are an air sign or a fire sign, because they tend to really value freedom. And with earth signs, that could be like something that is too full of drama for them. They just don't want to engage with somebody who's that intense about relationships. They feel like, hey, let's grow old together. Why do we have to have all of this? People do not, in general. I mean, I'm sure water signs don't like that either. Being falsely accused, not trusted. These kinds of things have to be examined, so that if you have a cycle of relationships not working out, look at that. So if you're on the other end of this power spectrum where you tend to attract these kinds of people, look to what your inner self is all about. Because, one of the sites had mentioned, if a person is unwilling to acknowledge some of their darker emotions or the shadow, they can project them onto a partner in the form of attracting a person who acts it out for them. And that is a really interesting thing that I think is very true. I mean, you see all these relationships where one person is very, very sweet, and they're with someone who's like very abrasive, kind of a very negative person. Sometimes they're even criminals. I didn't see that with Pluto in the seventh, but because it can deal with criminal or underworld activity, like the woman who's attracted to the gangbanger, or the career criminal who keeps going to jail, things like that. And you say, what does she see in him? And she's so sweet and everything like that. And there is something inside of her is being expressed in him. Or if it's a same-sex relationship, I guess it doesn't matter genders, but that kind of thing. So it's very interesting, isn't it, how that happens? And it does happen. And I think that it's because there's the shadow self that has not been integrated, that the person is able to see embodied in somebody else. And by doing so, they're probably getting something out of it. They're, maybe it's re-triggering their own trauma, and they're able to, make it. I mean, I'm talking about the positive angle of it, because it certainly doesn't seem very positive, does it? So, some other things that could be going on with you is that you crave intimacy, because Pluto is that merging of the Scorpio thing, the wanting to just merge with that person. But if you're not whole, it can't happen. And if you have trust issues, you're not whole. And I just want to say, too, these are I'm making these declarative statements, and life is not that black and white. We probably all have trust issues at one level or another, but I'm talking about major trust issues. And one way that you can see this happen is if you are capable of speaking to other people. Now, again, we're talking about one-on-one relationships. It can even be like platonic friends, and you're able to share your true feelings about things, and you're not worried about whether or not they're going to be offended. And I'm not even talking about being honest with them, but you can talk about yourself and what you're really feeling inside, and you drop that facade, armor, and just are capable of being vulnerable. I think that's the ultimate thing. And one of the sad things about people who are Scorpios, or have that prominent Scorpio, or who have, Venus in the 8th house, if it's afflicted, or, you know, Pluto in the seventh and things like this, is that if they do not trust and they keep themselves at bay, I mean, they keep others at bay through not revealing themselves, they can, the other person cannot get to know you at a deep level, and therefore the other person is not going to be emotionally invested in you. And so the relationship likely will not work out. The only real way to bond with somebody is by being real, and that means being vulnerable. Other people appreciate vulnerability. The people that don't appreciate it are people who are narcissists. They hate weakness and they exploit weakness. But that isn't the person that you want to be with anyway. So, you know, working on those trust issues. And sometimes, you know, the interesting thing is that you would make a great psychologist, because you might be able to read people like a book, but how about yourself? Can you read yourself? Are you one of those people that people tell their life stories to, and then you are kind of keeping yourself kind of mysterious, or just, it's kind of like the father confessor, you know, the priest who's hearing all this juicy stuff, and they're just sitting in that box, and they have that screen obscuring themselves. And so that kind of thing, it has to be a two-way street when you have a relationship. So you need to feel passion in relationships, but you have to be able to distinguish passion from drama. And that is a key one that I think people do not get. But and I'm saying that. They didn't say that. I'm saying that. I think a lot of people create and are attracted to drama because they think it's passion, and that is like a very big mistake. But one thing that can occur with this position or situation is that I think about the tarot and the Four of Cups, and it, you know, it shows this cloud with a cup emerging in the tarot white. Why do I say tarot? The Rider-Waite deck, but Pamela Coleman Smith was the one who actually illustrated it, and she has this cup emerging from the clouds, and, you know, this love, you know, from the universe in the form of a person, I suppose, and the person just who's sitting there and is not a happy camper, not somebody who is pleased, dissatisfied with this offer. And so, for sure, you are the type of person who is probably extreme in a sense. You either really are into someone or you're really not. The seventh house is ruled by Libra, and Libra is ruled by Venus. So this placement is like having Venus in Scorpio. And if there are hard angles here to Pluto, there could be domestic violence. I mean, it could be that serious. And like I said, the person might be a really controlling person, and, you know, maybe like psychotic, a very like bad situation. So I'm telling you this on the front end of things. Carefully vet the person that you decide to commit to. Get to know people very well before you commit. Don't, you know, if you are attracted to kind of the dangerous types, you know, question that. Say, you know, the people who, you know, there's nothing wrong with people who have rehabilitated from a life of crime, for instance. But if they are involved in it, even beyond the ethical implications, there's also the danger that they bring to your life. If somebody is in a gang, they put their whole family in danger. So that kind of thing. And there may be that attraction to danger that you have because of this. Again, the shadow self or even the trauma from childhood coming coming into the committed partnership scene. And some people just keep reliving their trauma until they heal it. So kind of find some way, whether it's through therapy or healing modalities, other healing modalities, to stop the cycle of abuse, so that you don't keep recreating it in different circumstances by the individuals that you get involved with. And there's something else that I wanted to say. If you are, well, I want to finish off with relationships because there's one more thing here. Marriage is transformative for you. So they say that wherever Pluto is in your chart, that this is an area of greatest transformation for you. So the seventh house can indicate that being part of a couple is that for you. And so it could have a very good effect, a very healing effect. I mean, I'm saying all these rather negative attributes because Pluto in Vedic astrology, Eastern astrology, is considered a malefic planet. So it's going to have a lot of those influences or effects that are of the more challenging variety. But that doesn't mean that it's just all bad, and that would be too simplistic to attribute that. So basically, Pluto in the seventh can indicate or that you are healed by your partner. Obviously, they can't heal you, but the union has a healing effect. And an example would be, let's say you grew up in a very abusive household and you met your partner maybe as a teenager, and you got married young, you had children, and that person, you almost feel like they rescued you from this horrible situation. Or you might meet them later on. It doesn't have to be as a teenager, but just that idea of the person who sees the best in you and allows you to, and also somebody that you can trust for the first time. So that person could be a very good, and that might be like a soulmate, a karmic relationship that you are meant to experience. But look at power imbalance in relationships. And the other thing too is, if this is the house of public relations, so if you have Pluto here, Pluto, just like having Pluto in the 10th house, can be a fall from grace. There can be scandals with this placement because, and I'm assuming it has to do with public relations, because Pluto has that tendency that's like, I'm surprised that Pluto isn't connected to the tower in the tarot, because that idea of things just kind of falling apart and you having to rebuild. So you think about celebrities, for instance, or politicians. But I think it's, politicians sometimes, once they have a scandal, they're done with. Celebrities, there's a lot more forgiveness. And they have like some kind of major scandal, and then they have their public relations team come along and they rebuild their image. Okay, so this can be a part of that issue because Pluto has that effect of perhaps transforming things, but sometimes it gets worse before it gets better, right? So that was the other thing that was kind of unusual. That was part of this whole thing. So I think I've said everything about this. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you would like a personal reading, I do natal chart interpretations, kind of like this, but with all of it put together. and also looking at transits and what the themes are for the coming 12 months. You can find out more about my readings when you follow the link below. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.